And before I go, I lied. My name's not Ariel. Welcome to Lost All Caps. And I decided to do a little callback in the intro today to episode 12, whatever the case may be.
I was going to say, my name's not Maggie.
Yeah, go listen to that. You phrased it in that way. You were like, I love how Kate just goes, and right before I leave your life forever. I lied.
Oh, okay.
I decided to do a little callback to that today because I feel like this episode and whatever the case may be occupy kind of the same space in my mind in that they're kind of just okay.
Okay, that's not where I thought you were going with that.
Oh, where did you think I was going?
Well, I thought you were going to say because the backstories are very similar in the whole, like, secret life and, like, life of crime...
Yeah.
Guns, that kind of thing. I was
Guns, yeah. That's like, a similarity.
Well, Kate and Saeed are very paralleled as characters,
yes.
aren't they? And they're both kind of outsiders, but like Saeed is really open and honest about his past, and Kate's very secretive. And like, I saw a really good. This isn't my opinion. I saw a really good meta post on Tumblr once about Kate and Saeed and how the show would have gone if they'd swapped round. So if it had been Kate had been like, I was a criminal, but I want to like help people I know how to track, whatever, and Saeed had been really secretive about the fact that he was like a torturer and how it would have gone, and it made me realise that actually their kind of role narratively is really quite similar.
That's interesting. I'd like to read that post. You'll have to
yeah,
send it to
I
me.
saw it ages ago, but I'll try and find it.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are like, you know, I was going to say within the text.
Well, I mean, you do call
I'm
it
such
the text.
a wanker. Yeah.
That is the term.
Is it?
Well, yeah, in like my when I did my TV module at uni, it was called the text. Because then you have the text, the audience, and the institution. Rob's going to be so proud of me for remembering this. The text is the show itself, and then the audience is like who it's marketed to, how it was received, and then the institution is like the channel or the company that created the show. And those three things work in... They're like the triangle of analysis that you have to use when you write about TV.
Right.
Because you have to consider it, you consider the text in the context of audience and institution.
Yeah.
And that's how you analyse it, instead of just doing like textual analysis.
Okay.
So you were right.
You
Shout out to my TV professor.
Okay, well, within the text then, there are similarities between this episode and whatever the case may be. Absolutely. Not only everything that you've said in terms of like the kind of narrative of the flashbacks, but also kind of like that the flashbacks are more interesting than what's happening on Island.
Yeah, what's happening on Island this episode is largely meh.
But I was kind of just going on vibes. Like, I feel like this episode it's okay. You know, it's mid-tier, but in a show that's so good, that makes it kind of a bad episode.
I would not say this is a bad episode. I feel like you've come on very strong with your negativity here.
Well, that's what I was getting when we watched it. I
think it's like because this episode.
I think it's because we've had so many good ones back to back. You know?
I mean, yes, we have.
We've had like in translation, followed by numbers, followed by Deus Ex Machina, followed by Do No Harm.
But the thing is also before that we had like, you know, we had Hearts and Minds.
Yeah, I know that.
And we had Outlaws.
What's what I'm saying, there are peaks and troughs. But like this is nowhere near the level of like Outlaws or Hearts and Minds. No, and I'm not saying it's a bad episode. I'm saying it's okay.
I would say it's a good episode, but I would say a lot of the episodes we've done recently have been great.
Well, now you're just quibbling over semantics.
Well, I will. This is all I do. It's what I was put on this earth to do, is quibble over semantics.
What this podcast is, really. Okay, well, we can talk about it then. But I didn't come away from this episode with I remembered the flashbacks from this episode.
The flashbacks are definitely more, they stick in your head a lot more than what happens on the island, which is why, like, last week, we were both like, what the fuck happens next episode? Because in terms of furthering the plot on the island...
Not much happens.
Not much goes on.
Yeah.
But the flashbacks are really, really important to, like, Saeed's character. And, like, also, we know why he was on the plane.
Yes.
Which is something we said we discover about every character by the end of this season, we think.
Yes, I think this is the last one, right? I think we've got everyone else why they were in Australia.
So we know...
So Jack was retrieving his father.
Yeah.
Kate's being arrested.
Yeah.
John was there for the walkabout.
Mm-hmm.
Claire was going
lives
to
in
LA.
Australia.
Yeah.
Charlie was there because his brother lives in Australia.
Yeah.
Hurley was visiting the woman with the prosthetic leg and the bad accent.
Yeah. Sawyer was killing the guy who he thought was the real
I was going to say,
Sawyer.
there was another one we found out recently.
Yeah.
Boone went to get Shannon and bring her back.
Yeah.
Who else is there? Rose. We don't know why Rose was
We
on the
don't
plane.
know why Rose was on the plane. That's very true. We've not
know.
seen her in fucking ages.
Oh, Michael went to get Walt.
Oh, Michael went to get Walt, of course.
And
yeah.
Jin and Son were there delivering watches.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the flashbacks from this episode are very harrowing and very intense, and that's what I remember, just being like, I actually can't cope
Oh my god.
with Asam's story. Like, it's
Yeah.
one of the biggest tragedies of the show, I would say.
Absolutely.
You know, and we should say, you know, up top, content warnings for this week. You know, we're going to be talking about terrorism and suicide.
Sort of general violence.
Yeah, yeah, it's intense. It is.
Also, John got shot in the head, but like he's fine.
I was waiting how long it was going to be before you made a joke about his big bald head.
Big target, innit? Easy to hit.
I knew it was coming. Got 6 minutes in.
Well, I think it's crazy that the bullet managed to graze off his forehead and he's fine.
Yeah.
Because that whole bit is so irrelevant in the overarching.
Yeah,
Like,
it really is. Literally, one of the main characters fully pulled a gun on one of the other main characters and shot the gun.
Pulled the trigger.
Pulled the trigger, and it never gets brought up again.
No.
I completely forgot it happened.
I was like reading.
quite frank.
I was like reading the episode description. And I was like, oh my god, yeah, Sharon tries to kill John. What the fuck? It's so irrelevant.
Yeah.
And you know what? I actually kind of really love it.
Yeah,
I have to
do.
say, like, it's one of my moments where I'm like, yeah, Shannon. Because I'm like, that would be my reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, yeah, fuck you.
Absolutely. And I feel like... Sorry.
Do you know? Do tell us more.
I was trying to hold in a burp so that it wasn't such a horrible noise for all you dear people. I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay. Well, anyway, welcome to Lost All Caps. We didn't say that part.
We started off.
Well, because you opened up discourse with your intro line. I had to say something about it.
And then we lost our minds briefly.
Now here we are.
Look, we haven't done a recording in the evening for a while.
Yeah, I think the last evening one we did was, did we do In Translation? And we went on for like 4 hours or something. We went on a really long time doing
Yeah.
translation.
So you've encountered us in a delirious moment.
And I've been in rehearsals all day, and also the clocks went back.
Yeah, the clocks went
So
back.
we've slept less.
Yeah. So we're all
We're
right.
all-
Well, not me. I slept until 12.
Okay.
It's
Little Miss
Sunday.
Unemployed over here.
What? It's Sunday. Even employed people are sleeping in.
Not Dad. He wakes up at 7 a.m. every day because the cat's trying to throw up on him. If a cat doesn't get breakfast at exactly 7 a.m., he just starts dry heaving on the pillow and he's Dad until he wakes up.
Oh, it's funny because it's not happening to us. Shout out to Dad and Casper.
He did it to me though one time, you know. The one time when last summer our parents went to Harrogate on like a little holiday.
Mm-hmm. They left us in charge of the house. Big mistake.
Well, you weren't even there. They left
Oh
me in charge of the
yeah.
house. I was at home. And I was like, oh, I'll have some of my friends over. I had like one friend over the first night and one friend over the second night.
You hearing this, Mum and Dad? She threw a party while you were out.
Through a party. I had one friend over and then one other friend over, and they were never even in the house at the same time. Because I was like, otherwise I'll go a bit insane, like being on my own. But I woke up the first morning and I kind of came to and I was like, oh, what's, you know, but I was like, oh, there's like our presents. And I was like, oh no, the presents is Andy, it's fine. And then I like kind of opened my eyes and Casper, the cat, was...
Andy's not the cat.
Andy's not the cat, Andy's my friend. The Casper the cat was looking at me and he was licking the plastic on the bag on my bin. And then I moved, and he freaked the fuck out and ran out of the room. And then I got up about 20 minutes later to feed him, stepped in cat sick.
Oh. Is
And
that
I
why
was
he
like-
ran away? Because he was ashamed?
I'd caught him, I guess. But he was also, I think, running to the food bowls because he was like, "You're awake, feed me."
Yeah.
And I went and fed him, and then I had to wash my socks. At least I had socks on, though.
Yeah.
I didn't step directly in it with my bare foot. That would have been worse.
That's lucky, if anything. Yeah.
I had to rinse my socks in the sink, and then...
Oh.
And then after all that, I got back into bed and went back to sleep for 2 hours. That's how tired I was. It was like 7:30, and I like rinsed the socks out, put them in the wash, cleaned up the cat sick, fed the cat, and then I got back into bed. This whole time, Annie did not wake up.
Just asleep the entire time.
He was completely asleep. He, at one point in the night, I turned the light on to go pee, and he like made a noise, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'll switch the light off." And then we were like chatting, and he was like, "Did you turn the light on?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, my like sleep mask is completely black out. I didn't even know you turned the light on. I just felt you moving." And I was like, "What?" Anyway, he's a fascinating critic. Yeah, this is what evening records sound like. Oh, also, by the way, I do have a cold right now, so if I sound weird, that's why.
And you've given me the cold.
Yeah, so if Ariel sounds weird, that's why.
Yeah. I'm Ariel. By the way,
I'm
we didn't do
Velvet.
that either.
And this is episode 22/21, The Greater Good. It's been 50
You
minutes.
come to this podcast for polished content, okay?
Structured,
We
organised.
are absolutely a well-oiled machine. I can't even say the fucking phrase.
Well, this episode actually starts off with something very exciting.
It does.
In the previously on, we finally get the stick payoff.
Finally, we told you guys it would come out of nowhere in the previously on. You see the clips from episode fucking 2. Is it 2?
I think
It's
it was-
super early on.
I think it was 7 because we said it would be 10 episodes, and
Yes.
it's episode 17.
No, because it's the cave-in, and that's Charlie's
Off,
big
yeah.
moment, isn't it? Yes. So clips from episode 7.
So it took 14 episodes for it to come back around.
Yeah.
But
There
it
you
all
go.
comes back around, as we know.
There you go, gang. We finally find out. I got so excited when it came up on the previously on. I literally yelled out, "Here we go!"
And can I just say, I have to say this. I think it kind of sucks as a payoff.
Oh, do you?
Because I think the fact that it's John is just like, well, okay.
No, that's not okay. That's crazy. John sabotaged their chance of getting off the island.
But like, would it not have been crazier if it was if it was Ethan or something?
Well, yeah, at that point, because we didn't know that Ethan existed. But the fact that one of their own group doesn't want them to get off the island, all of them. It's not like he's saying, "You go, I'll stay." Everyone. And he attacked Saeed and broke all the equipment.
Yeah, but I'm just like, why would you do that?
Exactly.
No, but
exciting.
it just annoys me because at this point, that old man's pissing me
That's
off.
just because he's pissing you off.
And so I'm like, and also he knocked, and like, how did he get there? And no one saw him, so you didn't feel him approaching.
Well, I guess he's sneaky.
Is he sneaky?
I think he is
He's like
sneaky.
55. I don't think. I mean, do you outgrow sneak? I think so.
No. I think he's very sneaky. He's nimble. He's spry. He does sneak up on people.
I mean, he does. That's true. But like, I just think it's just a bit naff. Just annoys me.
Are you
it's
okay,
it's,
Velvet?
It's the context in which he says it.
Are you-
When he's also like, "Saeed, I need you to trust me." And he decides the thing to say to
Yeah.
get him to trust him is, "I was the one who knocked you out and smashed up your radio. By the way, also, you're holding a gun and I'm not, and you're really mad at me for killing one of our other people." Like, what was his thought process
No,
there?
I do
it's
agree.
It's not the time.
I
Like,
do-
now is not the time, John.
I do agree that now was not the time to reveal it. Like, that was I don't understand why he thought that would make Saeed trust him.
Like it's just like
I
read the
physically
room.
overpowered you at one point, like 10 days ago or
Like,
whatever.
I mean,
How
I
long
guess-
ago was it? 3 weeks?
It was over
Question mark?
over a month, I think.
No, they've only been here for like a month, haven't
Yeah,
they?
but that only happened on like day 4.
What day? Episode 7 was day 4. No,
I'm pretty sure.
come on.
Well, because it's the third day when they find the caves.
Oh, God. Too tired to work this out.
Anyway, it's been at least 3.5 weeks.
I reckon in the early episodes, it's about 1 episode per day post-crash.
Okay, well, it's at least 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We can settle on that.
We can agree on that. Happened in those 3 weeks.
But, like, if it was an intimidation tactic, I'd understand that a little bit more. Like, if it was framed as, like, well, you've got the gun, but I was the one who knocked you out and smashed up your radio, so, like, who's the boss here? If it was kind of framed like that, I'd understand it a little more.
But also that would be weird.
That would be weird. That would be weird coming from John.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, that'd be really out of character. But, like, if that was how the scene was framed, I'd be a bit... But, like, it's the fact that it's like, I need you to trust me.
I guess it's like, I don't have any
not lying
secrets.
anymore. Yeah.
And then he lies immediately after.
And I think, well, we'll get to that. I think also because I think John's trying to say to them, he's lost Boone now, so he needs other people to understand there's magic on the island, doesn't he? So I guess he's saying, like, look, there's something going on. Like, that was why I knocked you out.
Yeah.
But he goes about it in entirely the wrong way, because what he's saying is, I knocked you out because I'm crazy. Like, that's how I'm perceiving it as Saeed. Is I'm like, you're crazy.
I don't think that's how he intended it to be perceived.
It's not how he intended it, that's how I'm reading it. Because also you've got to remember, Saeed is one of our skeptics.
Yes, that's true.
So what he's going, yes, and your mother had a history of schizophrenia, right? You know? He's going, John's crazy.
Yeah. But he has, like, a legitimate reason, doesn't he? In that he goes, the signal was coming from a place that was saying it killed them all. Do you want to lead everyone there? That's his, like, rational reason.
That makes sense. But he could have raised that.
He could have raised the point. What he does, but then he goes,
too busy being silent and mysterious and eating oranges.
He then goes on to say, but the real reason is because of the island, and everyone's focused on getting off. We need to appreciate what. Sorry, I just thought of a terrible joke.
Now you've got to say it.
Everyone's focused on getting off. That's what Saeed and Shannon were doing when Boone was dying. The dry wit on this podcast.
Unrivaled.
Everyone's focused on getting off the island. We should be appreciating what the island is giving us, or whatever. I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's in that sort of vein.
Once again, it's the kind of thing that when you look at it from John's perspective, you go, okay.
Yes.
Okay. But, like, John...
Don't just come out with that.
Don't just say that. Like, look at it from literally anyone else's perspective for 5 seconds.
Yeah. But he can't do that, though. He can't see it from anyone else's perspective.
Oh, he's autistic. I know. I know.
So Velvet, I feel like I should ask you, it's been a week now since we lost Boone. How are you coping?
Terribly. Actually, I am quite vindicated by this episode, though, in the fact that everyone else is so furious with John.
Yes.
Like, I think part of forgetting the plot of this episode has been a little bit detrimental to me in being so furious with John for getting Boone killed. Because it is like, they are mad. I did forget they are very mad. Like, Jack does say John murdered Boone.
Yes.
And, like, Shannon does try and kill him and ask Saeed to kill him. It's like, I am like, okay.
Yes.
It's not just, in my memory, it was quite kind of just glazed over.
Yeah, Boone's death is by no means insignificant, Like, think about, like Scott, for example. When he died, it was like, Ethan's the psychopath, he's going to be killing our camp, blah, blah, blah. We had like a 10-second funeral scene. Whereas Boone gets like
a
whole episode unpacking his death and the ramifications. Because he's more of a main character, which we forgot to bring up last week, but I think it is important to note. Boone was the one who brought up the red shirts in Star Trek.
I was going to say, we never mentioned the red shirt thing.
Yeah. So that I find really interesting as a device, because you could read it as... the text. You could read the text as the writers really early on hinting that Boone is going to die.
Yeah.
But I actually read it as kind of a message from the writers to say that doesn't apply here.
Yeah, it's like a opposite. It's like but what Boone's death indicates is no one is safe.
Yeah.
Because when Boone's talking about the red shirt thing, he's like, oh, haha. But it's like Scott's the red shirt at that point.
Yes. And
It's
Joanna.
And like, you know, like if it was Rash guy who died, we'd all be like, well, he's a red shirt. The point is we've gotten to know Boone, we know his backstory, we know him as a person, which is not the case with the red shirts in Star Trek.
Absolutely.
And so what it is...
Quite often, you literally find out their name 10 seconds before they get shot.
Yeah.
Like,
or after.
Or
Sometimes
after.
it's like they die and it's like, no!
Steve from accounts!
And you're like,
Pretty
well,
sure that's an Eddie Izzard joke.
Yeah, and like... But, like, this is what Boone's death indicates, is they've literally set it up as, yeah, he's talking about the red shirts, but this isn't.
Yeah.
No one is safe.
And I really like that. Kind of like going, hey, here are your expectations for this show laid out in front of you within the show. Forget about that.
Yeah. And very much like when I was watching last episode, I was like, well, he's not going to die, though. And he does.
And he does.
But yeah, I do think, like, Jack, as much as I'm, like, relatable, he does need to calm down. This episode is, once again, he just kind of goes completely and I know he's had a few days, but, like, he's so funny this episode, and he's so funny. Jack's trajectory this episode is, attacks John. First of all, he's running deliriously through the jungle, again, covered in blood again.
Yeah.
Already happened with Claire.
Twice, I think it's happened.
Running around with absolutely no tracking ability. Not learned his lesson from last time. He then attacks John with his bare hands.
Can I read out a note that I wrote down at that point?
Go on.
Get so angry I pass out.
Get so angry I pass out. Literally.
That's what he does.
And then he has to be physically drugged in order to take a sit down.
Which, let's unpack that for a second. What?
I love that.
Why is that Kate's immediate instinct?
Because this is who she is. She's
That is who
Maggie,
she is.
who fools Jason into robbing the bank for her. This is like her go-to.
Yeah.
She's probably drugged the marshal before. It's the way she's like, yes, the normal rational sleep. But also it's like, he requires that kind of extreme treatment.
He does.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like sedating an angry cat and the vets that won't get, like, vaccines. It's like, you go, okay, you need a seasoned vet. I'm not sure I like this analogy. I'm not sure I like the implications of this analogy. So I'm going to leave that there. But, like, she's like, okay, well, this kind of extreme behaviour, the solution is drug him. And it's like, the solution is drug him. Because if she'd not done that, he would have just kept running around in the woods until he'd literally died. You know? Like, he already got so angry he passed out. He'd just do that over and over again until it knocked him out for, like, 8 hours.
Yeah. It's giving, like, sort of, when you're in a really difficult bit of a video game and you just can't be asked to wait for your health to regenerate, do you know what I mean? And it's like, no, I've been stuck on this level for fucking 45 minutes. I just need to power through. And then your character kind of just, like, wobbles and then falls down on the ground.
The red, like, outline.
You died!
That's what Jack's seeing. Jack's seeing, like, a red outline on the screen.
He's seeing waste.
He really is. It's like he needs that. He needs that treatment. And then he wakes up and is immediately back to it.
Yeah, but he has to be because the key got stolen.
But I do find it a bit strange that Kate is like there when he falls asleep and she's there when he wakes up. I mean, I guess she goes off to get the soup and that's when Shannon goes for the key, right?
I guess, yeah. But it is, why was she sat there watching him? How did she know he was going to wake up at that point? How long had she been there?
Yeah,
I have a lot of questions.
How long was he asleep for?
Probably a very long time because she drugged him.
Yeah, because it's like, I'm trying to think the episode. She drugs him and then Saeed takes John into the jungle.
I'm pretty sure all of that happens, yeah.
While he's asleep. So like a good few hours. So like, was she sat there the whole... I mean, to be fair, she probably needed a break as well. She's probably like, I just delivered a baby. I'll have a sit down for a few hours.
They all have a little sit down, don't they? This episode is like, have a little sit down, apart from Shannon and John and Saeed. Everyone else gets a little sit down.
Yeah.
Because that's Claire's whole plot line in this episode. You need to rest.
Specifically, Claire, go have a sit down.
Yeah. Should we talk about that plot line whilst we're here?
Sure, yeah, since it's come up. I've got basically the only thing I've got written down about this is classic funny plot, give the idiots a baby.
Yeah.
It's like classic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like classic sitcom, like two men who've never been around a baby before try and look after it.
Yeah, there's that episode of Friends, isn't there?
Where they have the baby and then they lose the baby.
They leave the baby on a bus or something and then bring home the wrong one. Or it's kind of weird. And I know what this show does a lot is big tonal shifts. And, you know, like, I'm not going to criticise it for being a big tonal shift because they've done it a lot in previous episodes. And they've had more extreme ones, yeah. But I just think this one isn't well executed, personally. Do
you not? I think this is funny.
No, I don't think the scene where Hurley sings I Feel Good, I don't think that's funny at all. I was watching that just kind of cringing.
I think it's kind of funny. I think the bit where Charlie's singing Itsy Bitsy Spider and then Hurley's like, you've got the lyrics wrong, unless it's an English version. I think that's quite funny.
Yeah. But I don't think that just didn't hit the spot for me, that scene specifically. But and this kind of plot line as a comedy plot line, I just didn't really vibe with it.
I think out of everything in this plot line, I would say the whole concept of taking the baby away is the bit where I'm like, well, that's a bit weird. Because it's like, John built her a cradle. She could just put the baby down.
No, but the point is she doesn't want to sleep because she's worried the baby's going to get taken.
I guess so if she knows someone has him.
Yeah. Charlie's looking after him, he'll be okay.
Okay, if I look at it that way, it makes a bit more sense. I was a bit like...
Charlie looking after him and he'll be okay, not necessarily the same thing.
No, but like, Son is the one who's like, in the hospital, they would take your baby, so Son, take the baby.
Yeah.
If she knows.
Son, take the baby.
Son, take
Jesus,
the
take the wheel. Son, take the baby.
Son, take the baby. Like, if she's the one who knows, she's read all her medical books, you know, she's watched all her Grey's Anatomy, she knows. She knows. Like, I would much sooner trust Son.
Son, take the baby.
With my newborn.
Why is that such a funny phrase? Son, take the baby.
I forgot a couple of words in there.
This is what happens when you find us. It's currently 8:10 in the evening.
It was 10 p.m. then.
It's currently 10 p.m. We've been here for 4 hours and all we've got to is Son, take the baby. And then we just start laughing for 20 minutes at Son, take the baby.
I would much rather...
That's the name of my new band.
That's an album title, I feel. That's like an album Drive Shaft would have.
Son, take the baby.
The album cover is like the baby son from Teletubbies. Son, take the baby.
That was so out of nowhere. I was gonna say it's like, do you remember like 20 episodes ago when there was like that one long shot of them all stood on the beach and I was like, they look like they're about to drop the sickest album ever.
Yeah, that's the cover. But no, I would just much sooner trust Son with my newborn baby than I would Charlie and Hurley. And Sawyer, like, are you joking? If I had to rank, first of all, give it to Michael. That's my first, because who on the island has had a baby? Michael. Like, if I have to trust any of them.
We've seen Michael and baby Walt. They're so cute.
Playing with cute little baby Walt in his jaunty hat.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm realistically in that situation, I'm going to go to the only other parent on the island and I'm going to say, could you look after my baby for a bit?
Yeah, and I feel like he would say yeah, because he would realise what a big responsibility that is and he would take a break from building the raft.
Yeah.
And he would look after the baby. And that would be really cute. I would love to see Michael in dad mode once again.
Also, can you imagine, like, Michael and Son tag team look after the baby?
No, Jin would be so mad though.
Jin would, but like, what if Jin helped deliver the baby? Baby brings them together as a polycule. They raise the baby together.
And Claire just fucks off, I guess.
Fuck Claire. Forget about Claire.
Claire goes off and has lesbian experiences with Kate.
Yeah.
And they have a little polycule.
Polycule baby. They raise a white baby together. One black guy and 2 Koreans raise a white baby.
And that should be the sitcom. Not give 2 men a baby and, like, you know, resort to sexist stereotypes. This is the woke rewriting of Lost.
I love the concept of woke Lost. I've seen a bit of posting about it on Tumblr, like people being like, I have a bit about woke Lost. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna add to that lore. We'll make a little Tumblr post adding to the Woke Lost lore.
Woke Lost, where they raise the baby. It kind of is already Woke Lost. I saw this great tweet actually. You guys might probably have seen it, listeners. You won't have, Ariel.
Fuck my drag.
But it's about Yellow Jackets versus Lost, right?
Oh right, okay. I probably haven't seen it then.
Exactly. And you're not on Twitter. I mean, I'm not either. But my friend who is on Twitter and is on Lost Twitter and Yellow Jackets Twitter sent this to me. It's basically about Yellow Jackets versus Lost, and it's so funny because on the Lost Island they're practicing ethical non-monogamy, and on the Yellow Jackets Island they are eating people. And it's Yellow Jackets is a bunch of teenage girls who go genuinely off their rockers, and when you look at Lost in context, I love the phrasing of ethical non-monogamy.
That's a great phrase.
That's what Lost is.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing else about it is ethical. Not a whole lot else.
No. I guess that, there's a lot of flirting between the whole, and they did say the baby is all of ours.
Baby is all of ours. So. That's polygamy.
There's a shockingly low amount of cannibalism chat in Lost.
Yeah, I've always thought this, because it's if I was in Lost...
Me too.
I've
always thought this.
If I was in Lost, I genuinely think they weren't allowed to.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Because I'm the plane crash, when you think about plane crash, stranded on an island, cannibalism always comes up in the conversation, you know? It's always how soon would you last before you, would eat someone, or how,
The classic hypothetical.
Or
no, but it is. People ask that, don't they?
Or it's you have to hunt. Something I often say, because we're both vegetarian, I often say well, if I was on a plane crash, I would rather eat the other people than I would go out and hunt. You know?
I'm not sure I agree. That sounded quite affirming. I feel like
that was more of a sort of neutral. You go on.
Yeah. Keep going. Yeah, no. I'm letting you cook. A body. Yeah, I think my answer to that question, how soon would it be for you to eat a person? I always just say I think I would rather be the one that's eaten. I think I don't want to do that personally.
My friends once told me that if we were in a plane crash, I'd be cannibalized first. I'm not sure what that says about me, but I choose to believe it says that I'm yummy. But yeah, I think I
What's
genuinely...
that Good Place quote? It's not a joke, I'm a legit snack.
That's me. Yeah, I think genuinely that ABC were you can't talk about cannibalism, because I think it's one of those things where it's it's a bit far for a lot of people.
And also this show is very much kind of in the kind of 12A territory, isn't it? They kind of dance along the line of age ratings and
it's
restrictions.
You can have murder but you can't say fuck, they're in that kind of area, and
very
it's
much so.
I think a lot of audience, I think they'd lose a lot of audience, would struggle to see them as good people if they were to eat other people, which for me I'd have no problem with it.
I'm not suggesting there should have been cannibalism in Lost, but the fact that it's never brought up at all.
I genuinely think it was completely censored by the network. They were you can't mention it, because it makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Plane crash is classic cannibalism scenario.
Yeah.
You know? Much like in Yellow Jackets.
Yeah.
When they eat someone.
Yeah.
I've not seen Yellow Jackets, by the way, but I do know that they eat someone.
Spoilers.
Say Jackie?
They eat the Yellow Jackets?
The Yellow Jacket, they eat it.
That's what I'd be doing. The vegetarian in the corner, forced to eat fabric.
Boiling the shoes and eating the leather, that's a classic as well.
Is it?
Yeah, that's a thing that on a boat, if you're stranded in the ocean, they boil the shoes. That's a thing.
What?
That's a thing.
Where have you heard this?
Horrible Histories or something. They boil the shoes and eat the leather because it's close to something you can eat.
Did Rattus come up in the corner and hold a placard saying silly?
I don't think so. I'm sure it's a thing. Write in. If you've ever eaten a shoe, let us know.
Yeah, write in if you've eaten a shoe, or if you know of someone eating a shoe.
But yeah, I forget where I was going with this. Yeah, no, I think there's no way that off-screen cannibalism wasn't brought up. Cannibalism.
Son, take the baby. Oh, It's funny because a podcast requires you to be able to speak, and we can't form sentences anymore.
Yeah, there's no way that even because Hurley and Charlie are classic as well. They're immediately suggesting cannibalism. I know this to be true.
Yeah, because Hurley's genre aware. Come on,
genre aware.
He's our genre aware king. He's obviously going to bring up cannibalism.
Yeah. Also, he's the one sharing out all the food in the pilot. He's the one giving out all the airline meals.
Yeah.
There is no way he didn't go to Jack and be like, "Do you think we should eat people?" And Jack was like, "No." And he was like, "Okay, man, I'm just trying to help."
Yeah,
that's how it went.
That's exactly how it went, actually. Right. Well, I'm glad we've solved that.
Now that we've wrapped that up,
let's
talk about Saeed.
We didn't get to the end of the Claire baby plotline.
No, I think the ending is actually very cute.
The ending is super cute. That's what I was going to say. I don't like this plotline particularly. I don't think it's very funny, and I don't think it... Yeah, I just don't think it's very funny, and it's obviously supposed to be a funny plotline. But I do like the ending. I do think it's very sweet that the baby likes Sawyer's accent. Yeah. We also like Sawyer's accent. We've been over this on the podcast.
I did write down... He's in the wild. The baby knows he's in the wild.
The baby knows he's in the wild.
I did also write down the only other note I have about the baby plotline was obvious doll until close-ups.
That's very true.
This is a whole thing I have. I've not brought it up yet because obviously the baby's not been born. I have this whole thing, right? I know when fake baby noises are being used on TV. Because I had
Let me stop you right there. You have brought this up on the
have
podcast
I?
before. Yes.
I was going to say it sounds familiar. Has there been a baby? Oh, what baby Walt? I brought
Baby
it up,
Walt.
Baby Walt.
I'm going to stop you right there. We've been here before.
I've said this. I was saying it, I was like, I'm sure I've said this already.
Oh, the dry wit on this podcast.
Yeah, so there was it's fake baby noises, and also whenever there was a shot that wasn't directly of Charlie's face, that was a doll.
Yeah, definitely.
Not even a doll so much as just a heavy blanket, I think.
Yeah.
I just think it's really funny. It just always makes me giggle with babies, because I'm I know obviously you can't use them in every shot.
Obviously.
You shouldn't.
No.
But it is funny when it's completely
Obvious.
Static blob, and then it's close up and suddenly the blob is moving around. And I'm you can tell when there's a baby in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't actually write this down, so I'm not going to be able to remember specifically, but I was going to just bring up, obviously, the whole point of that final scene. First of all, Sawyer's got his cute glasses on. He's kind of in his dad era, which I kind of like. A little bit. If only it had, continued, but, I feel like it's just this one moment where he's because he doesn't give a shit about the baby at all.
No.
But then he's got his glasses on and he's reading, and it's oh, this is nice. But, I feel like he's going to continue to not give a shit.
No.
But when he's obviously reading this car magazine, which I think's really fun because obviously he reads a lot of books and everything, but I like that it's just the tone of his voice and his accent that the baby responds to, so he's just reading literally anything. However, of course, he's not reading just literally anything. The numbers do come up. There was a 400 horsepower or something, and it was there were definitely 4s in there in the car description. I don't remember
there was
any
16
specific.
as well.
I feel like
there was a couple, because I was paying attention to what he was saying, because at first it sounds a bit like a story, and then it goes, and then the 400 horsepower car, and it feels it felt a little bit like a story written by someone who knows too many details. And then the car, which had these specifications, moved down the road.
They're trying to work an advert for the car into their story. They're sponsored by this car brand.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I really like that, and I really like when Claire comes up to the tent and is what's going on? And Charlie's come sit down, look. Baby likes Sawyer.
Yes, so that's a very nice scene.
It is cute. What's less cute?
Don't do this.
Is everything that happens to Saeed.
I'm not allowing that segue, I'm sorry.
One of my notes are just as suspicious. A lot of my notes are really incoherent for this episode.
Don't be suspicious. 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 Don't be suspicious.
One of them just says Jack Girl.
Jack Girl. Were you trying to write Jack Baby Girl?
No, I think it's based on context of what's around it. I think it's when Jack just launches at John and then passes out in the sand, because the note has above that
Jack, girl.
Girl.
Yeah, got it.
Not just Jack is a girl. Because I have, John came back, his shirt's still all covered in Boone's blood.
I know.
How gross is that?
Heavy metal. Love it.
It should be brown by now, though, surely. I was thinking, like...
Well, how long's it been? He brings... All night.
And the morning.
Well, maybe it wouldn't be that...
It would.
Stained. Oh, do you have experience?
Well, I have a lot of nosebleeds, don't I?
Oh, yeah.
And I imagine it would.
I immediately got shut down.
Yes, I do have a lot of experience.
Yes, actually. Famously, we grew up together. You should remember
Famously, do you not remember all the time?
that I had this experience. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the pre-intro sequence, because it's
Very
fucking long.
Incredibly long. I have so many notes.
Insanely long. So we have a good previously on, which has our foreshadowing, our subtle foreshadowing. We have the first flashback where he's being detained in Heathrow Airport, which they detain him for 18 hours and he's not even committed a crime. Is that legal?
Well, he's Iraqi, so...
And the government's racist, I guess.
They just do that, I think.
I guess, it's the... They say it's the CIA, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, then why is he in Heathrow? That's in England.
Oh, no.
What are the CIA doing in England?
Getting Saeed.
They show up and the coppers are like, what's all this then? Hello.
I think it's like Saeed got detained in the airport because he was a Republican guard, I would assume, is their reasoning. They were like, well,
they
you
probably
might
don't
be a
even
terrorist.
fucking need to have a reasoning, do they? Just show up and flash their badges.
Yeah. And then the CIA were like, we'll use him. And then those 18 hours were used to like find Nadia and stuff.
Oh, I thought that they detained him because they knew they had this whole plan concocted already.
They purposefully detained him.
Surely, because they know he knows Assam.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So I think they found him. I bet that's what it was. They were able to find him because he was travelling, so you have to put your name in, don't you? So I bet they went, Saeed Jarrah, perfect. Hey, England.
Detain this guy.
Hey, it's me, England. How you been? Oh my god, that's so nice. Yeah. No, we really need to get the girls together sometime. Could you please detain this guy for us?
Yeah, and if like the CIA call you and say detain this man, you're gonna assume it's a safety concern.
So I reckon that's what happened. And then, we get this whole setup. I mean...
Yeah, I don't...
It is brutal.
I don't remember anything else about that scene. And also that it translated Heathrow Airport into German on our DVD. Our DVD is stuck in German sometimes for some reason.
It still keeps doing it.
It's like...
We don't know why.
It's like it's not subtitling everything, but whenever text appears on screen, it translates into German.
Yeah. Why?
I don't think the DVD player is just a bit broken.
We bought a really shitty DVD player from like a cash converter.
It was $4.99, the box was already open. And the guy was like, if it breaks, we're not going to be able to fix it. We'll have to do it. We were like...
it's so old.
We were like, we don't.
I reckon the DVD player is probably from around the time that Lost came out. I'd say. It's probably 20 years old, that DVD player.
Probably. Because he was also like, we don't have an adapter so you can put it into a TV. We were like, do not worry. Our TV is also really old. Just plug straight in.
This literally happened to me the other day. Someone was like, they needed to plug an aux cable in and no one had a computer, and all of them had like new iPhones or whatever that didn't have the port, and I was like, don't worry, I've got my 5-year-old phone right here.
Yeah.
Passed me the aux and I put on Michael Giacchino's Boonerall.
Which is the other great thing about this intro.
We need to talk about Boonerall.
We talked about Charlie Hangs Around.
We did.
As a track.
Mm-hmm.
And how Michael Giacchino likes to have fun.
Yeah, I feel like we mentioned maybe Locked In or something. Or Locked Out or something like that. There was one about Lock, which was like Locked In or Locked Out or something.
I think it was Locked Out because I think it was Hatch. Hatch.
That would make sense.
And yeah, this one is called Boonerall.
It's called Boonerall. Okay? And yes, that is funny. And we need to address the fact that it's an incredibly sad song and an incredibly sad and emotional situation, and it is called Boonerall.
My liked songs on Spotify, there's only like 4 of them. One of them's Boonerall. It's like my liked songs: Cha 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 by Karia, Boonerall, and then 2 songs by my favourite band from their new album, and the Sugar Shack by Jimmy Gilmer and the Fireballs.
Oh, Sugar Shack.
Which, the story of Sugar Shack, I will tell, actually.
Yeah, fuck it, go for it. Honestly, at this point, the podcast has gone off the rails.
So our dad works at a theatre.
Mm-hmm.
He went to his old theatre to get some, like, tape recorders to use as a prop in a show. And there was a cassette inside one of the tape recorders. And we were like, let's play it.
Which, now that I am an avid listener to the Magnus archives, is incredibly Magnus coded, I'm just realising.
Very much
Yeah.
so.
That's quite exciting.
We were like, let's play it. And we were expecting, like, something creepy or like an audio recording or something.
I honestly don't know what I was expecting.
What came out of it was this 1950s... I can only describe it as, like, the kind of music that plays, like, next to palm trees. It's like a whistly, whimsical tune and, like, a da-da-da-da. It's, like, all, like, violin and stuff.
Yeah.
It's called... And then I Shazammed it because I was like, I need to know what the song is.
Yeah.
And I Shazammed it, and it's called Sugar Shack by Jimmy Gilmore and the Fireballs. And it is... so good.
Stream Jimmy Gilmore and the Fireballs.
It's genuinely a banger. I'm not even joking. It's genuinely really good.
It is, and it's such a weird, like, way to find a song, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
I know. I, like, played it to my friends once, and they were just like, how the hell? What do you
It's
mean?
like something at the start of a movie, you know, like when they find a treasure map in, like, a weird place or something.
We didn't find the song found us.
It really did.
You know?
It really did.
And so those are my liked songs on...
Worth noting, talking about old technology, that our car has a cassette player in it.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
This is a family thing. I also have a Walkman somewhere.
It breaks just as much as Hurley's.
Yeah, it's not. It's broken.
So we have the whole funeral before the fucking title sequence.
Yeah, and the whole fight scene and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, the funeral, I think, is worth, you know, talking about. Like, I think... this is one of Shannon's more interesting episodes.
Definitely, this is, like, I do think kind of post Boone's death, Shannon gets a lot more interesting as a character.
Yeah.
Does continue to happen in the next kind of few episodes. She develops depth.
Yeah. Because the writers, you know, they could have given her depth and backstory beforehand, but they just didn't.
They attached her to a man instead.
Yeah.
And now they have to.
They felt like she didn't deserve a proper backstory, but... now she's been through this trauma on the island, so they latch onto that and they're like, let's use that to build her character. And it does work. And yeah, I think it's really interesting the way that Jack kind of, not nonchalantly, but kind of just goes, do you want to say a few words? Like he is expecting her to.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't even thought about it really. And it is kind of nonchalant in a way. And she says no. And I think that's really interesting because we know Shannon to be like this kind of...
very sort of loud and...
very loud, but I was going to say very kind of stubborn and rude and kind of... what's the word? Let's go with oppositional.
Yeah.
She's very oppositional.
Avoidant? No. Avoidant is more just not... this is like a fuck you, I'm going to do what I
Yeah,
want.
basically. When someone says, like, can you help? She's like, no. And... you know, in a previous, you know, iteration of her character, saying something like that, like, do you want to speak at your brother's funeral? No, would have been that kind of bitchy, stubborn tone. But here, she says it so quietly and sadly, and it's like she's really struggling to process Boone's death.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite cool.
And I think Saeed's speech
Not
is...
cool, sorry. I mean, like,
cool
it's
in,
quite...
like, a narrative
to
sense.
watch, yes. I think it's really interesting to see her character respond in that way.
And I think Saeed's speech is really lovely as well.
Yeah.
Because I think the fact that, like, yeah, it's one of those moments where you remember that they don't really know each other.
Yes.
But the first thing they all learn about him is that he nearly drowned trying to save Joanna, and it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, because maybe Saeed and Boone didn't interact before that point. That's fair enough if they didn't, you know. But yeah, I did think it was a tiny bit funny when he said it so loudly.
I didn't know Boone very well, and I was like, okay. Well,
like the camera's not on him, like out of nowhere. It just like...
it felt very much like, you know, do you ever like psych yourself up to do something and then you kind of start talking and go, oh, well, I'm doing it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I feel like that was his moment where he went like, I've got to say something now, otherwise I'll never say so. I didn't know Boone very well.
Oh god, here we go.
And now I'm making the speech.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But you're right, his speech is nice, and he says that Boone was a hero and everything. And then John shows up out of nowhere. Sneaky!
He is... No, okay, I'll give you that.
He snuck.
Sneaky.
He snuck up on them and he goes, it was my fault. You know? Boone died because of me. And he tells them about the plane.
But he doesn't tell them about everything.
This is the thing. I've written down, John shows up and tells mostly the truth.
Yes, it's still not quite... He's just still lying.
He is still lying, but he's putting on a show of not lying.
Confessing, yeah.
Yes, which is interesting.
He's doing like a, this is what we've been lying about. It's like almost convenient that they found the plane, because it means he doesn't have to tell anyone about the hatch, because he could just be like, that's what we found.
Well, that's what you think until Saeed rocks up.
Exactly.
He puts his shades
Boone
on.
Dropped him in it.
And rolls up to the...
By saying the hatch.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, we'll get into Saeed's interrogation era in a second, because I do love that plotline in this episode. But yeah, so then Jack basically just jumps him, which is pretty, you know, like he starts like beating him up and stuff, and he's saying like, you lied to me, yeah, and he calls him a son of a bitch and stuff, you left Boone to die, and we completely understand why Jack is doing this, because he's also a little bit delirious from having drained all of his blood and not slept and everything. But if I was a survivor of the crash, I would be like, oh my god, you know, Jack is our leader, he's our level-headed guy who's supposed to help and save us in every situation, and now he's just going apeshit and attacking John.
Yeah, I feel like I would kind of be like, oh, it's all falling apart, you know?
Spiraling. I'd be spiraling. And they are spiraling.
But I'd also be pissed off with John, so I'd be like, yeah.
But you don't know the details. If you're just a survivor,
no, I don't know the
you
details,
just go...
But also, like...
They just come to you on the beach and they're like, Boone's dead, also here's the baby. You're like, this must have been a crazy episode for all the extras. Just like, what?
Yeah, no, it's a crazy... And then the intro, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So much to unpack there. I think they do this a little bit more in the later episodes and in the later seasons, where they have a really long pre-intro sequence.
Yeah. No, it does happen a lot, but this is kind of the first instance of it happening.
So chunky.
A really long time. I've just realised I've lied to you. Actually, I did make another note about the baby thing.
You lied to me, you son of a bitch.
The other note I've written down is, why is she wearing grey trousers right after giving birth? I was like, that's a choice.
That's a good point. That is a choice.
I'm going to talk about the televisography.
Okay.
Because the scene in where they're praying. Oh my god, so cool. The focus, the like lens focus on that scene is so brilliant.
I do like that.
It's like, it's almost like a sort of, the way it kind of plays out is almost like a sort of music video, in the way it's kind of on beats. Like it kind of like it, you know, it's like the way it refocuses to just show you exactly what you should be looking at, I just think is so perfect. And it's like there's all this crowd, but you focus in on the two men and you know who Saeed is looking at, and then you know when Assam notices Saeed, and that like when he turns, he notices Saeed, and then he turns back towards the camera and he's like, his eyes are all wide and he's like, you know, he's recognised him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, it's just so good.
No, I agree. That is a really good scene. And one thing that I noticed this time around, which I don't think I ever noticed before, is please forgive my ignorance. I don't know a lot about the Islamic faith, but it seemed like in that scene, the person at the front would like say something, and then they would all, or everyone else in the room would say something sort of in response. Saeed wasn't saying anything.
No, I did notice that as well. He wasn't like speaking along with everyone else.
And that I found interesting. So I was like, either it's because he doesn't have that faith anymore, and he's kind of, you know, he's only in the mosque to try and find Assam, or it's like, because he's in the mosque to try and find Assam, he feels like it's wrong for him to
take part,
participate
genuinely.
in this, because it's like a lie or like some kind of scam or something like that. And, you know, he doesn't want to disrespect.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time he shows any sort of outward signs of religion, right?
There's a little, actually, in our previously on moment, come on everyone, remember that from 24 episodes ago, he says like a little prayer when he, right before he sets up the...
oh, does he?
Yeah, triangulation of the signal.
Oh, there you go, I'm lying to you then.
But it's like a tiny throwaway moment, and you might not have even noticed it. Yeah. So we just get these tiny little details that they just pepper in here, and it's like, you're left to try and figure out what it all means yourself.
Yeah.
And isn't that the show as a whole?
Isn't that the show?
But yeah, I really like Assam as a character.
Assam is a brilliant character.
Honestly.
He is amazing. He's also, can I just say, winning the Big Sad Eyes contest.
Absolutely.
Like this, it's a big competition across the show.
It
who
is.
has the biggest, saddest eyes. I have to say, Assam has taken the cake right now.
Oh, he has crashed in. He's a late stage protagonist in the Big Sad Eyes war, and he has crashed into first place in my opinion, because also I noticed that I think this is what I noticed so much about his eyes, because they really do stand out, is we have a lot of big blue eyes in this show. We do not have a lot of big green eyes. I think he might be the only person.
Big green eyes.
Yeah, I did look up the actor's name before we started because I anticipated that we'd be talking a lot about him. Please forgive me if I pronounce this wrong.
You're about to butcher it.
I am. I'm sorry. His name is Donnie Keshawars. And I think he's a fantastic actor.
I think he's brilliant.
Honestly.
Has he done much else?
Not really. I did a little stalk on his Wikipedia page. It says he's a stage actor. Okay. So I think he does more stage stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, on his Wikipedia page, like Lost was credited as one of his like sort of notable roles. So given that he's only in this episode, I assume he's not done a whole lot of TV stuff.
It is quite interesting to like.
I think it said he was like half Afghan, half Lithuanian. Ooh, I was like, wow.
That's an interesting mix.
Yeah. And he's born in Canada. I was like, oh my god, this guy. He's got such an interesting life.
Yeah.
I think I might be a little bit obsessed with him.
Fascinated by this guy.
Like, oh my god, tell me more, Donnie. Tell me more.
I think it's really interesting. This episode was really interesting to think about for me because I saw a play recently. I say recently. This is back in like October. It was like a one-man play by a guy called Khalid Abdallah, who you might know as he was in The Crown. He plays, I've forgotten the guy's name, Princess Diana's like new partner.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
In The Crown. And he's like, basically he's like a film and TV actor, but also he's like a huge like political protester. And like he does like weird art as well as being like a mainstream actor, which I think is a really fun combination. You don't often find that. He's I think Egyptian, but don't quote me on that. But his like breakout role was playing a terrorist in a film about 9/11. And it's about like it was like one of the planes. The guy flew it around for like half an hour before he crashed it, and it was about what happened on that plane in that time.
That sounds really interesting.
I've not seen it, but yeah, basically, and a lot of what he talks about in that film is like, why was my big break playing a terrorist?
Yeah,
you know, and he did this whole bit where he sat down in front of a camera and it was like projected onto the back of the stage in the play. And it was like a self-tape for an audition, and he was like, oh, do I have the right look for the part? And it's all about like, does he look?
Yeah, wow, that's interesting.
All he's ever been cast as is like, you know, like terrorists and things like that.
Yeah.
He's a really amazing guy, and the play was like really, really powerful, really moving. I really enjoyed it. It was called Nowhere. And yeah, but that just kind of gave me a new perspective on this episode, because I was like, this plot line as a whole, and also like the actors involved, like you know, I'd be interested to know just like how they felt about it.
Yeah.
And things like that. And it's even like, even if you look at Naveen Andrews' like cinematography, he's always playing the sort of minority character, isn't he? In like all the things he's famous for.
Can I say something that I found out recently that's very, very exciting to me personally?
Go on.
There's gonna be a new Star Trek like audio drama or something. I honestly don't know, because I didn't look into it because I got so excited, because Naveen Andrews is going to be voicing Khan.
Oh my god.
I was like, this is a crossover. This is the crossover I have been waiting for.
It's a big day for you.
It's a big day for me.
That is amazing, actually. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
I saw some pictures recently of Naveen Andrews when he played Jafar in Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
I was like, that's crazy.
I know, but good casting, I think.
It's quite good casting.
I can see him doing like a very camp, very villainous villain. You know, like the kind of Panto-esque.
Dramatic
villain.
Like cartoon villain. I can see him doing that. It's true. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that kind of gave me that, I was thinking about this in Assam as a character, and how actually what he does I do think is a bit of a contradiction of that stereotype. Because it's not, he's just a terrorist, he's not like a blind, you know, supporter of like a cause. It's like he has a lot of complexity. And he's very much humanized.
He has a huge amount of complexity, and I think he's incredibly well acted. Like that guy,
amazing.
Donny Keshawarts eats. Honestly,
he's so good. And this is like one of the episodes. I do think I cried a little bit first time I watched it.
Oh, I definitely cried at the final scene.
It's so sad. Like,
oh my god, I was like lost for words. Lost. We're lost for words on this podcast because we can no longer form sentences.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's just so powerful. Everything about it.
Yeah. It's so tragic and brutal and like... Yeah, so let's go scene by scene, shall we, through the flashbacks.
Okay.
Speaking of eating, Saeed absolutely eats when he destroys that bug.
I love that.
Oh my God.
I love that so much. It's
Sick.
the way he notices, but it's also, it's like, he probably knows that's there, and he's doing that to like gain their trust.
Yeah, they probably told him that they've planted a bug in the
But like
smoke
the way
detector.
he does it, the way he carries on the conversation. I remember
Sick.
like the first time we watched it, I was really confused about what was happening, because I was like, he's
Me
just
too.
carrying on the conversation, and then he does it, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. He absolutely serves.
It's really amazing.
And I know that Assam saying he was a tree cutter was like a lie. You know, what's the word? It was a cover.
Yeah. I really am obsessed with so much for my philosophy degree.
I loved so much for my philosophy degree. That really hit home. As someone who has recently graduated with a useless humanities degree, English literature, in case anyone was wondering, that hit home. I was like, I'm destined to be a tree cutter.
Because I was also like, oh, bless, he does philosophy. But then I was also like,
philosophy! Yeah, philosophy is obviously very important to Lost, but also very important to Assam, because he's going, is this the right thing to do?
Yeah.
You know, the greater good as a concept.
And like the innocent lives versus the furthering the good is a very philosophical concept.
Because like then Saeed is like, he doesn't want to go through with it. You know, like we can get Assam to turn himself in. We can get him to turn himself in. And they're like, no, you're going to have to manipulate him into killing himself. And he goes, no. And they go, well, we're going to manipulate you because we'll arrest Nadia.
It's insane. Just like the lack of respect for his life is so disgusting.
So disgusting.
Just because he's like a terrorist, supposedly. He doesn't even want to do it.
No. And I know that they kind of go, you're going to talk him into it, and then we're going to get there before he blows himself up. So he is going to be saved.
You know,
but they're going to, you know, take him to prison. And, you know, I don't know what the terrorist laws are, the laws on terrorism are in Australia, but he could have a really horrible sentence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the lack of regard for his life is ridiculous.
But I also think, in relation to the philosophy thing, there's something I want to discuss with you.
Okay.
Which is that this episode, I think, and I know I noticed it before, really offers an interesting perspective on fate.
Oh, okay. Let's get into
because
that.
I was saying earlier, Saeed is one of our skeptics characters. And like he's not likely to believe John when he says there's some kind of greater purpose of them being on the island.
Mm-hmm.
Fate is mentioned a lot in the flashbacks, in the sense a lot of them say it was fate that brought us together.
Mm-hmm.
It was fate that brought you back to us, Saeed, whatever. When in reality it's not. And it's all orchestrated by the government, but he kind of lets them believe it was fate. And it just made me realise, kind of like, if you look at that next to like kind of John's flashbacks or like Walt's backstory, it's like, depending on the beliefs of the character, we get a really different perspective on like magic and fate in the told in the backstories. So like if you look at Hurley, like you come out of Hurley's episode believing wholeheartedly that the numbers are real, the numbers are cursed, there's something going on. But you come out of this episode thinking, well, it wasn't fate, because it was orchestrated by the government, so it's not real. It wasn't, like, all meant to be.
And everything is very much, like, brought back to reality,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's completely
Very
harshly.
much grounded in reality. And I think that that's a really interesting through line across all the backstories. That, yeah, depending on the kind of level of skepticism or belief in the characters, you get presented with their life, because what we're seeing, you know, more than anything else is their life from their perspective.
Yeah.
Like, and as we've seen with, like, Sun and Jin,
Yeah.
the story is different depending on the perspective. So what we're seeing is that Saeed doesn't believe in fate and magic and it's meant to be, so of course it's not present in his life, because he's telling us his backstory. But if you look at John or Hurley, it is very much present in their lives because they believe in it.
Absolutely. That's really interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I'd never noticed that before, but I think you're totally correct. And yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh.
And I
This
think that's just a really fascinating thing to look at.
Yeah, operates on so many different levels. It, like, I mean, in a way, we're being manipulated by the show, you know,
Yeah.
into believing and not
We're led
believing
to
in all
believe
kinds of
certain
stuff.
things. And I think what's great is that because there's so many different levels of belief on the island, you are kind of free to agree with whoever.
Yeah.
Like, they're not outright telling you there is magic, it is real. Things apart, I mean, I guess the numbers kind of are unequivocally.
Well,
It's debatable.
it is
It's
debatable.
debatable how much power they have, but there is
But they're
almost
definitely
unrivaled
linked
element.
to the island.
Yeah.
And that's like that's a dramatic thing. That Hurley hears the numbers in such a roundabout way, and then he ends up on the very island that they came from.
Yeah. You kind of can't dispute that.
Yeah, you can't really just say that's all coincidence.
But a lot of, and like I said this in Deus Ex Machina, with how you get presented with John's mum has a history of schizophrenia, and then suddenly there's a moment where you can, if you're very skeptical, you could just be like, well, it's not really magic, it's John deluding himself. But then you get this dream, which predicts the plane, and it tells you something about Boone that John could not possibly have known, that then you're like, oh, so there is something real going on. And I think, yeah, it's a really interesting thing that depending on how inclined you as a viewer are to believe it, all perspectives are present on the island, and in a way all perspectives are true, because nothing magical has happened to Saeed, but magical things have happened to John.
Yeah.
And then putting them together in this episode, I think, really brings that together.
Yeah. Absolutely. That was just really good. I kind of want to just sit in that for a moment. That was a really good coherent monologue after me being like, oh, we've lost all our brain cells.
Son take the baby. Son take the baby who?
See, you kind of ruined it there by going, starting to say like, who's laughing now, and then just going, son take the baby who?
I ruined it a little bit,
but yeah, so let's talk about Saeed and John together. I'm a big fan.
I really like the dynamic. It's really good. I think, first of all, it being through Shannon is very interesting.
Yes.
Firstly, John, change your shirt before going to comfort Shannon. He had the same bloody t-shirt on before he goes over and is like, I'm so sorry. His blood is on your shirt.
Yeah.
Read the room.
Yeah. It's quite literally on your hands. That felt very performative from John.
Yeah.
It felt like he didn't actually care about Shannon.
Because also that moment where he says, I know what it feels like to lose family, when like the most recent thing we've learned about John is that, like, you know, his dad massively fucked him over and is like a terrible person, and that he doesn't really have a family. I mean, I know he talked about his sister, his foster sister.
Yes, so he knows what it's like to lose his foster sister very young. And also, I think when he says that, because we've just had the Anthony Cooper flashbacks, that's what it was, my mind immediately went to as well. But I think when he's saying that, he's like, he feels like he lost a father.
He lost the idea of a dad who, like,
Yeah.
loves him and cares about him.
Obviously, it's not the same thing because he did not die.
Yeah.
But I think that's the kind of grief that John experienced.
Yeah.
And he's talking to Shannon about. And also, you know, never having a proper family and everything. It wasn't easy for John.
No, of course,
But I
saying.
don't think he's reading the room well.
He's not. He is not.
And it feels like what he's doing is he's saying, like, to himself, he's going, I can't have Shannon mad at me. I can't have Shannon mad at me because that's not practical. We're not going to work together as a group.
She needs to believe there was a greater good. This is the thing, is that the innocent life lost for the greater good, isn't it?
That's really interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that in context of what's happened on the island.
Kind of just occurred to me now, That Boone is kind of a psalm in that sense, that he's the innocent life that's been lost. And then in order to further the good.
The narrative that we get in the flashbacks with the psalm is like, that's all fake, that's all a lie, and he died kind of for nothing.
Yeah.
And so, is that what we're led to believe about Boone? Question mark. Is that what Sayid believes about Boone?
A new perspective. Like, this episode is very much a new perspective on Boone's death, where it's like, well, there was no magic. It was just that John lied, and everyone's angry with him, and fate is not real.
Yeah, so it goes back to what you're saying about the show gives us all these different perspectives, and we can think about them.
Yeah. But Shannon going to Sayid, I love that. That maybe is my favourite Shannon moment, actually, of all time, is when she's like, you asked if there's anything you could do for me. And he's like, obviously being like, I want to help you.
Yeah.
Can you do something about that? Because it's the way it's like exactly the same kind of bratty thing that she would say about something completely different, but it's like the implications are so heavy, and like the way she delivers it is with so much more gravity than the way she normally would speak.
Agreed. I was just about to say that.
But it's so casual.
Yeah, but it's also like she's implying here. She wants Sayid to kill John, doesn't she?
Yeah.
But she doesn't say that. She just says, can you do something about that? And yes, I will admit, she does eat.
Can you deliver a message? She's giving Mr. Pike. She's giving Mr. Pike. She's like, deliver a message. Tell him I'm disappointed in him.
Absolutely. But yes, so then we get our little interrogation moment, and Sayid's asking him all these questions, and John's like, you know, what does he even say? You're an interrogator.
You know when you're being lied to. I know when I'm being lied to. There's a plane.
Serve! An absolute serve.
But it's like the way he says that's like, he knows the rest of it's bullshit.
Yeah. This is the thing, and it comes back around at the end of the episode when he's like, he was like, I told you there were two hatches on the plane. It could have been either of them that he was talking about. And it's like, I know when I'm being lied to. The absolute gall that a man could have to lie to Sayid.
We were saying this.
We were.
The other day when we watched the episode, we were like, I wouldn't even lie, because I would be too intimidated to even try to lie to him.
I can't believe he did. And he was being held at gunpoint.
Yeah.
By Sayid, and Sayid goes, what's the hatch? And he straight up lies through his teeth. Couldn't believe it. I was like, John.
The fucking audacity of this old man. I don't like him.
Literally. Wild. But very exciting. You know, that scene is really exciting.
And I will admit, like, I think what I really like about the, like, when he goes, there's two hatches on a plane, is that I think he's been preparing that one. Like, I think he's been thinking, like, he knows he's gonna ask, and he delivers it so casually, he's almost like, gotcha.
I don't know, though. I don't know if he knows that Boone would have said about the hatch. He probably didn't think Boone was able to say anything.
But I think he's been thinking about it.
He's been thinking about it, maybe. Well, he's obviously trying to decide whether he should tell the rest of the group about the hatch. He decides that he shouldn't, but then he is forced to.
Because of the light, I assume.
Why would the lights mean he shouldn't tell everyone else about it?
Well, because when Boone gets injured, John starts thinking it's all for nothing. I don't really have, like, this special purpose. I've not been doing what the island wants. And I think he's ready to sort of give up. But then when the light comes on, it's like it was for a reason. And so he's back set on the path of, I'm supposed to do this. This is my destiny.
Gotcha. Yes.
And so he's back to being like, no one can know.
No one can know.
Because there was a reason no one could know in the first place, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, he, like, gives Boone that hallucination so that he doesn't tell Shannon.
Yeah. And really the only reason Boone knows is just because they found it together.
Yeah.
Like, if Boone hadn't been there when they dropped that torch, it would have just been the John's thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, yes. No, I do follow what you're saying. But yeah, so, like, the Saeed has some banging lines in this scene. I just want to read a couple of these out. So he notices that John has a gun on him. First of all, I'd forgotten that. So very observant from Saeed. And it's not like we as a viewer, get to see the gun. Ooh, and then Saeed's like, you have a gun. Completely forgot that he had a gun.
We don't see it.
I was like, John has a gun? From where? And then he goes, here, take the gun. Does that earn me some trust? And Saeed says, you gave this to me because I caught you concealing it. That earns you adaptability. Oh! Oh, shots fired. Quite literally.
It's so good.
Yeah. He absolutely decimates him with that.
It's like he's not got a leg to stand on.
But then he comes back around with the, hook, I don't know about boxing, with the lying.
Yeah.
He comes back. And yeah, I do love when he goes as well. I've written down, I think this is after John goes like, do you want me to tell you something you don't know? So he goes, please do. And I've written serve in all caps. I don't even know how he delivered it. I think he maybe leant on the plane and was like, please do.
I love the way Saeed can be so casual about the most intense of situations. Because he's just so used to it, This is like where he thrives. This is where all the sass comes out.
Yeah. It is great.
Please do.
And then, he pulls the gun onto John and, holds it at the base of his neck. That's the really, intense moment.
Yeah.
It really looks, painful and hard to watch. But then it's, you kind of think he's pulling the gun on John, but do we think he's going to shoot him? No. But then when Shannon pulls the gun on John later on in the episode, she absolutely would have killed him.
Yeah. 100%. If Saeed hadn't taken her down, she would have shot him straight in the chest. Mm-hmm. And John would have let her.
Yeah.
Because the way John, he doesn't seem particularly scared, I think a part of him is probably he's probably if I was in your position.
Maybe. Or maybe he believes that he's supposed to open the hatch so much that he thinks he would just survive a gunshot wound. Which,
that's probably more likely.
In a way, he does.
In a sense is the truth.
In a sense, that's exactly what happens.
It's one of those things where it's I'm always oh, John and your fate, and then I have to be well, yeah, but from his perspective, everything he thinks is going to happen is happening. So,
But the storm, the foreshadowing of the storm, love that when John, casually goes, there's a storm coming, and then it starts pissing it down when Shannon's in the standoff, love. And she does also kind of eat when she gets the gun out of the case and she's all sopping wet from the rain, and I'm that's giving end of a zombie movie, what's it, Final Girl or Final whatever Girl, yeah, she's in the apocalypse. And
can I also say Chekhov's key necklace?
Yes, but also no.
I do love that moment though when Jack says that he's all groggy and then he just goes and he freezes.
Yeah.
And it's oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. And then the standoff is obviously very true.
No, she's very kind of cool in this episode. She becomes cool briefly.
Yes, and it's unfortunate that this is her processing the grief of the death of her brother.
It's what it took for her to become cool.
Her cool era.
But not in the sense of her character, just in the sense of this is what it took for the writers to give her something interesting.
Yes,
I feel the need to say that's what we're getting at.
And just the way that it's framed, yeah. And they say you've never fired a gun before, and then she just fires one.
I love that. That's so funny.
Yeah.
When she's now I have.
Yeah. Don't underestimate her.
Talking about iconic Saeed lines, what we end this episode on, and John, no more lies.
Oh, so good. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, and he says as well, I certainly don't trust you. I'm yes. It's a very sort of spooky scene, isn't it? The low lighting and everything. He's very intimidating, and I'm it sets it up that next week we're going to finally get some answers out of John.
Yeah. What it reminded me of as well is the bit where Boone comes back after he sees Shannon die, but she didn't really die, and he's all covered in blood, and then he goes to John and he's not covered in blood anymore. It was kind of similar in terms of lighting and setup and framing, and I was I'm not sure if there's an intentional parallel there, but I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Something else I also think we were saying, the perspective has kind of shifted on John, everyone is pretty pissed off at him, and I thought they weren't.
Yes.
Walt seems to be quite scared of John now. There's just that one scene, he doesn't even say anything. It's just John is washing his shirt out in the water, and Walt walks up and he says hi, and he just kind of stares at him and then walks away again. And I was like, oh yeah, Walt's scared of John now. Walt's kind of being like, oh, my dad was right. I shouldn't be hanging around with him. I'm sure Michael feels vindicated. And then he's like, this is a horrible, terrible tragedy, but also, I was right.
Yeah.
My son shouldn't be hanging around that guy.
John's dangerous. And two things to mention there. One, I do really like the framing of that scene when John is washing his top. I think that's like shot in a really cool way, and also the fact that we see the kidney scar.
And he gets asked about it, and he's like,
war wound. Kind of fun, you have to admit. I know we hate John right now, but that is kind of fun.
It is quite cool, you can't dispute.
And then the other great moment from Walt this episode that I wrote down is he's asking a lot of questions about the raft and how safe it is.
Oh my God,
and he says, like, what if we die? And Michael looks at him and he goes, we're not gonna die. And he goes, Boone died.
Yeah. That
gave me chills a little bit, because it's like, we're sat here going, oh, they're not red shirts, blah, 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 blah. But then it's like, when you are in the TV show and you realise you don't have plot armour. Do you know what I mean? They acknowledge that, not being meta, but like, they go, oh, any of us could die at any moment, actually.
Yeah, I would say it's almost the opposite of meta in that it's a moment where it becomes really real. Like, it's a moment where you as a viewer go, oh my God, yeah. Like, they're experiencing a very real death. And that, like, we're gonna get off, if things were looking up, it was, we're gonna get off the island, we're boarding a boat. Boone died. Anything could happen.
And we really get that kind of, with Walt, we're like, he's got these special powers and he's like really an incredible character and person. We kind of sometimes forget that he's a child.
Yeah, I was going to say, for this to come from Walt as well, who not only is a kid but also is a kid who just lost his mum.
Yeah.
So he's probably already having a lot of intense emotions about, mortality and life, and has been in a plane crash.
Yeah.
Where loads of people have died.
Yeah.
But then this is his moment where he's like, well, I want to stay on the island, I like it here. This is where I'm safe and happy.
He's not safe.
It's not anymore.
Yeah. My God. I mean, everything just crumbles around him, doesn't it? Oh my God.
And it's not only is it someone has died, but it's someone who, like,
completely forgot
he was
about that
friends
scene.
with. Like, he was friends with John, and he would go out and they would go knife for him.
I mean, I absolutely forgot about it in the grand scheme of things, but watching it yesterday, I was like,
I think it's a really powerful moment. I don't actually have a whole lot else to say about this episode, looking at my my notes.
Yeah, me neither, actually. Just I've literally just written things like the final flashback and Saeed's flashback, fuck me, and stuff like.
Yeah.
It's just so harrowing, really is, and I definitely did cry when I first watched this.
It's one of those episodes where you just kind of have to sit and look at a wall for a bit afterwards. You kind of just can't. You're like, I just need to not do anything for a while.
Yeah.
And this happens a few times.
It does. And you watch Solitary and you're like, oh my God, that was horrifying. But surely nothing worse can happen in Saeed's past.
Surely it can't get worse. And then.
Oh God. And just, like Assam's delivery in the truck when he's like, you use me for a woman.
I know. And the way his acting, we've talked about it already, but the kind of realization on his face when he figures it all out.
Yeah.
It was all for nothing.
His big sad eyes get even sadder.
I know. I wrote it down. Gosh. I wrote down like he's winning the big sad eyes competition, and I looked up and he like had the gun. I was like, oh God.
Yeah, but oh my gosh, it's just so tragic, isn't it? Because it's like he's been led to believe, he's been frightened to do this thing, to, be a martyr. But he's been led to believe by a man that he trusted, that was his friend from years and years ago, that this is the right thing for him to do, even if he is just trying to get revenge for his wife's death and everything. And then to find out that it was all a lie, and that he also lied about losing, his wife, or you just
His
says I
love,
lost someone
yeah.
as well. Actually, he's doing all of this to try and find her again. It's like you can't not feel taken advantage of, and you just see it all come crashing down for him, and it's so horrible.
And
it's
the
so
worst
horrible.
part about it all is that Assam says to Saeed, you know, I hope she makes you whole again. Saeed is supposed to be going to find Nadia, but because Assam is dead, he changes his flight, which means he gets in a plane crash, which means he never even sees Nadia. Yeah. So it was all for nothing. Yeah. Because
it was all so he could end up with Shannon for some fucking reason.
This happened the day before the plane crash. The day before. So Saeed, in the pilot episode, you know, when he's up on the hill with the radio, trying to translate the French and do all that maths, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
All of this happened to him.
Oh my god.
And he's supposed to finally see Nadia again for the first time in, like, we don't know how many years ago that.
So many
But
years.
it was like the Gulf War was like 1991.
I think so.
And this is 2004. So it's like, it's a long time since they've seen each other. He didn't even know if she was alive. Mm-hmm. And now, and he thought he would finally get to see her again. And now he's here, right after all of that with his, like, friend. And oh my god.
And every time he looks at the pictures on the island, we now know how important that is to him, because he finally believes she's alive. Yeah. But then does he? Because when he's with Rousseau, he's like, she's dead. And it's like, yeah, the CIA could have also been lying to him.
Could have been lying to
this
him.
entire time.
And I'm sure that, like, I'm sure that, like, in the moment, he didn't believe it. But, like, afterwards, after, like, Hassan was dead and all that, he's probably just gone, it might have all been for nothing. Because then he believes it's for nothing, and it's like, well, what if they were lying?
Oh my god. It's awful. It really is awful. But then, if you take the fate perspective, just because of what you said earlier, like, let's imagine that Saeed does believe everything happened for a reason, then maybe Assam's death led him to crash on the island, you know? Like, if Saeed was supposed to be on the island...
Supposed to get to the island, supposed to find Danielle, maybe, or supposed to something, you know?
Then Assam did have to die. Because otherwise he wouldn't have gotten on Oceanic Flight 815.
Yeah, he would have gotten on the flight the day before, and he would have gotten to LA, and, like, maybe he's never meant to find Nadia. I don't know.
Oh, don't say that! Don't say that!
I'm not gonna... It's not that he was meant to find Shannon. I'm gonna put that out there right now. That was never their
We're nipping that in the bud. No.
I'm ending that.
Absolutely not. We're drawing a line underneath that, and it's a big, bold, black line with the full stop after it. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he says at the end that, like, time won't make a difference, it's like you kind of go, how long has it been since, you know, Assam died? Because obviously he feels really guilty, and he understands the kind of emotions that Shannon's going through, I think.
Yeah. But then also it's like, how many times has this happened to Saeed?
Oh my
you know,
God,
he was a soldier.
Yeah.
He was in a war. Like, he doesn't seem, he's no stranger to guns. He's no stranger to all this, like, torture and stuff. How many times has he lost someone? Yeah. This is just one story out of many, it seems, for him. Mm-hmm. And we talked about in Outlaws how, like, Sawyer hadn't had a moment to sit down and process that he'd killed a man for the first time, like, right before he got on the plane. So this is kind of Saeed's moment, isn't it? Yeah. In a way. But he does it in such a different way, because, like, I think he feels really guilty about stopping Shannon from killing John. Because he basically, okay, let's say that they love each other. He tackles the woman he loves. He tackles the woman that he's been making out with at inappropriate times. Can we talk about as well the fact that one of the hard cuts featured in the Previously On? Loved that. You know, like, he physically overpowers her in a really intense personal moment for her. He is the one who has to stop her from doing that. Yeah. And
maybe he thinks that she needed to kill John in order to
Yeah.
recover. But then also, when Charlie killed Ethan, I mean, I think there are parallels here, right? 'Cause
Definitely the rain and the dramatic, like the kind of impulse decision to do it.
yes, parallels in the televisography, but also in that, you know,
It's a character you wouldn't expect.
Ethan kidnapped Claire
Yeah.
and took
So
away
Charlie
her
killed.
memories of Charlie, and so Charlie killed him. You know, John killed Boone, so Shannon wants to kill John.
And both of them are characters you would never expect to pick up a gun in that kind of situation. Both of them have never
Exactly.
shot a gun before, that kind of thing.
But Saeed tells that story to Charlie where he's like, you know, even he volunteered for the firing squad or whatever for this, I can't remember the exact details, and he was like, it was the right thing to do, the person deserved to die, but the fact that I may have killed him, obviously firing squad, it doesn't change the fact that that's a really intense and hard thing to process, and, you know, killing a person changes you. I think that he's preventing Shannon from that.
Yeah, and I think also because it's such a permanent decision.
Yes.
Like, and I'm sure he thinks if he could have spoken to Assam differently, it wouldn't have gone like that. You know, if he just told him before, or if he'd convinced him to turn himself in or something, it would have gone differently. And so he's like, he doesn't want to let Shannon make that decision she can't take back.
Yeah. And have that guilt and have that kind of change in her person, you know?
Yeah.
Because we've seen what it's done to a lot of the characters who have killed, you know?
Absolutely.
In this show.
It's really made a huge impact on everyone, you know, involved. So yeah, that's kind of a bomber note to end on.
Yeah.
But this episode is kind of
yeah.
kind
It's
of
very-
low.
It's very, yeah. So, okay, so after our conversation today, I'm like, okay, the episode does have some very good moments.
Are you picking up what I'm putting down? I think it's a good episode.
I am, but I still don't think it's that good of an episode. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like,
I think the on-island stuff,
it's just
it's
less
weird.
interesting.
It's just weird. I think because it's all like, all the composite parts are interesting, but for some reason put together it doesn't make for a great episode. And I don't know why that is.
No, me neither, but I completely agree. But I also think, like, okay, so I really like Saeed going off to interrogate John, and I think that he has great delivery and a bunch of great lines and everything, and John lying about the hatch is really, like, shocking, you know?
Yeah.
But it's not nearly as dramatic or interesting or exciting as so many other on-island plotlines that we've had in previous episodes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's just, like, comparatively.
But
This
I do
is what I'm
feel
getting
like we
at.
kind of needed that, because last episode was so intense and it was very much pulling all the triggers on built-up plot lines, and it was like so much going on all at once that I do think on a level we needed a bit of a less
Perhaps.
intense on-island plot.
Yeah, perhaps. But it kind of does feel like a filler episode, doesn't it?
I guess a little bit, and I guess like in a sense it's like obviously this backstory, it's a bit like with like Charlie's flashbacks, stay with me on this, in that they don't really tell us anything we don't already know about the character. Like obviously now we know why he was on the plane, but we don't know anything new about him in the sense that like we knew he was a torturer, we knew he was in the Republican Guard, we knew he was looking for Nadia and that she was his reason for like, you know, his like main purpose.
Yeah.
In the same way that like with Charlie, we knew he was in a band, we knew he was a drug addict. The backstory didn't really add all that much.
Yes, but I'd argue that we learn about Saeed in this episode, what he's kind of capable of and what he's capable of doing to his friends.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think we learn more about, but there's no like revelations, or there's no like this massively changes my perspective of this character. You know, in the same way as like getting like Kate's first backstory episode, or getting, you know, John's, or like John's kidney episode, or like, you know, finding out about Sawyer's letter. Like it's those moments where you like, this completely changes how I view this character.
Would you agree that the narrative presented in the flashbacks is almost an enclosed narrative, which is really like harrowing and tragic and everything, but almost could be lifted out of the show? and be its own thing.
Absolutely. That could be like a short film about terrorism. The flashbacks are very much a closed narrative that could be a separate film in and of itself.
And they do influence our understanding of Saeed, but not as much as a lot of the other flashbacks.
And it's not in the sense of often you can really see direct parallels between what they're doing on the island and what they're doing in...
How their past experience
Maybe that it's a little bit incongruous. Because it's like we're not getting... We can't really obviously see Saeed thinking about these moments in his life and then informing what he's doing, which we get often with the other ones.
It seems, again, this has happened a couple times where it's like... Surely Shannon is the most important character here.
It should be a Shannon episode.
It should be a Shannon episode.
It should be a woman. But it's not.
Yeah.
This really...
But then it's like, how on earth would anything in Shannon's past have influenced how she's feeling right now? Unless it was loads of sad scenes of her and Boone, you know, having a picnic together as children.
It would just be a sort of childhood montage, wouldn't it? It would just be like a sort of sad slideshow of like pictures of them, school pictures or something.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is what's going through her head right now.
Yeah.
But like, but then also it's like, do we want to unpack what's going on with Shannon right now? Because her relationship with Boone is intensely toxic and weird.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm kind of, in a way, glad it wasn't a Shannon episode.
Yeah.
In a sense.
We don't want to see her... You know how we got Jin's perspective? We don't want to see her perspective of everything that happened in Sydney.
Because I think, you're right, it is about Shannon, but also it's about Saeed, and also it's about John, and I think... It's maybe a little bit weighted wrong. It's not like massively about Saeed in a way that maybe it should be.
Yeah, and I'm kind of just like, yeah, it feels odd. I agree, and yeah, the flashbacks. It's not like I love them. Like if I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna watch a random episode of Lost, I'm not picking this one because I don't want to cry my eyes out. But unless I do, in which case I may pick this one. But so I love the flashbacks in the sense of I think they're really good and affecting. Main plot, you know. B plot of the baby and the comedy plot, kind of meh. And then C plot of Jack being drugged by Kate.
Peak, no notes.
Yeah. So, on the whole, that all adds up to a kind of mid-tier episode.
7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, and in a show where so many episodes are 10 out of 10, it kind of falls flat for me a little bit.
No, I see your perspective. I do. I do disagree, but I understand where you're coming from, you know?
Well, go on then, make your case.
Well, I've made my case. I feel a lot of the episode has been me making my case. My thing about fate.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good analysis of the text. And that's
something that you only really get upon third watch, you know? And then going, I'm really fascinated this way through by, like, the kind of philosophy, fate, free will theme. Yeah. Because it's a huge thing. And I recently, uncovered a, like, philosophy book we have at home, which is like it's basically like a philosophy for dummies type thing. It's like a timeline of like prominent philosophers with like a couple pages summarizing their ideas, and I like read the John Locke page and I was like, this is actually fascinating. Yeah. When you look at his perspective on like fate and free will, and then you look at John as a character.
Honestly,
it's like they've really done their research.
I think it needs to be a required reading for it's further reading. It's on the reading list for this podcast. That philosophy book. I sometimes think we should bring it on air with us and just read out excerpts and go.
You know, this is a bit of a tangent. I always feel like Anthony Cooper is a reference to something. It's not.
No, I don't think it is.
But the name, for some reason, the name just always sticks out to me as like it should be a reference, but it isn't.
I guess it's because we get his full name.
Yeah.
We don't often get their full
name.
names.
As well, I think probably sticks out a bit. You know, that's a weird thing, actually. That's just occurred to me. None of the characters have, like, the same surname, even the ones who are related.
No, that's a lie.
Well, apart from Jin and Sun. I mean, like, of the main characters. Like, because Michael and Walt have different last names. And, like, Boone and Shannon have different last names. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, okay. Yes.
It's just occurred to me. But, yeah, I read the Rousseau page as well. Less relevant to Danielle's situation. But he had a whole thing about kind of returning to nature. and like the kind of pastoral and like that.
See, I always get confused because I always think about the painter, but they're not the same guy, are they?
No, that's Henri Rousseau, and then you have Jean-Jacques
Rousseau,
Rousseau, who is the philosopher.
He sometimes came up in my reading, and every time I would think they were talking about the painter, and then get very confused.
Yeah, so, but they're both relevant, because Jean-Jacques Rousseau had a whole thing about, like, returning to nature and the pastoral and stuff, and then Henri Rousseau did the painting of the jungle in the storm with the tiger, which is, like, one of my favourite paintings ever, and that, obviously, is very much indicative of Danielle's character and the island.
She's the tiger.
She's the tiger.
Hell yeah. Absolutely. Okay, I'm happy to end on that, though.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, that's a fun place to end it. So we will see you next week for episode 22, which I've just googled it. It is Born to Run.
Please follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, Facebook. If you use any of those platforms, give us a follow. Lostallcaps-podcast or something like that. Give us a 5-star review, like and comment on the videos. We want to know your thoughts. Let us know if you've eaten a shoe.
We've been getting some absolutely lovely messages coming in recently. I just want to say, we really genuinely, every single time someone messages the Instagram account or comments on our TikTok or something, I am screenshotting them, I'm sending them to Ariel, we're both going oh my god, people are listening and having input on what we're saying.
Yeah.
And, so literally every single one we get so excited about.
We do. It's really lovely because, I feel like I've said this before, but we kind of just started this podcast because we love Lost and we love talking about Lost and we have a lot of things to say.
We have a lot to say.
And it's really nice that there are people out there who are like us, want to hear what we say.
And that aren't just my friends who obviously... My friends, if you're listening, I'm so grateful that you listen. But it's it's so nice that there's people who we don't know who are listening.
Yeah, but also sometimes when you talk to people who you can tell they're not interested, and you're yapping away about Lost, and they're they're kind of active listening, and you're no, that's no, I've heard it has a really bad ending though. I had that recently. I was have you ever seen it? And he was like, oh no, because I can't really get into shows if I know they have a shit ending. And I'm like, I'm holding your hand when I say this. It has a fantastic ending.
You know what? You've actually just shifted my perspective. You know how I was saying that it shifted my perspective on character? What you said there has shifted my perspective on myself as my own character.
Oh, has it now?
Because I'm one of those people. I can't, our dad's really into Stephen King, we've mentioned this before. He's always trying to get me to read Stephen King books, and I was yeah, but I know a lot of them have crap endings. It's he will say himself.
That's his opinion. And obviously that's the only opinion we're getting.
We know.
Because we've not really read it.
He will say, It is one of the most famous Stephen King. I would argue maybe the most famous.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Stephen King book. And not just from Dad, I've heard from a lot of people, it doesn't have a very good ending. Or, I've been told kind of vaguely what the ending is, and I'm that sounds crap. But then it's maybe... it's not a bad ending. Yeah. Maybe I do need to read it.
Maybe.
Because maybe if someone had told me Lost has a shit ending and I'd not watched it, we wouldn't be here right now, and I wouldn't have found my favourite TV shows. So
there you go. And maybe it's not about the ending. Maybe it's about the friends we made along the way. Maybe it's about the podcast we made along the way.
Maybe it's about the podcast. Although that being said, Lost does have a fantastic ending.
It does. Okay. Look, obviously we can't talk about it because we're a spoiler-free podcast. If you've gotten this far, you were either A, have watched the whole thing, or B, you're committed enough to the watch
which means we're not spoiling it for you.
It has a great ending. Don't give up, please. Don't listen to them. Don't believe their lies. Wake up, sheeple. Lost has a great ending.
Cover your ears. Do not listen. It is not true. It has an amazing ending, and it made me cry. And
me too.
I can't even think about it sometimes without being ah!
I know, and it makes me so upset that it had such a backlash when it was first released.
Because it's beautiful.
It's fantastic, and maybe it's from our perspective, we're used to Netflix cancelling series halfway through. We're used to a lot of shows starting out really good, getting really shit, and not having the satisfying ending that you want because they've been cancelled or something like that.
And I think largely, it goes a bit weird in the middle, but Lost, they end it where the writers always wanted to end it. And there's a behind the scenes documentary, something like that. I don't know. I watched something. And the writers said the ending is what they had always planned from the beginning, where they always wanted it to end. And I think that is so perfect and so amazing that they got that, and that we were able to see that find its end point,
Yes.
find its satisfying, nice ending, and it's a really lovely ending, and it is so...
So it's possible that in 2010, which is when the last series came out, people didn't have our perspective where things were getting cancelled left, right and centre, and also, you know, they'd been committed to this show for like 6 years or something, whereas we watched all of Lost in about a year?
Yeah.
Year and a half?
We started watching it Christmas... holidays, because initially we could only watch it on holidays because Ariel was at uni and I was still at home living at home, so it was like we could only watch it on holidays. We started it Christmas, I think we finished it like the following summer, something like that.
A year, give or take a few months, I'd say. We
It was
watched the
about a
whole
year.
thing. So it's a different experience. And so I can understand why some people were unsatisfied, but I personally think it's a really satisfying and really fantastic ending, and it makes me so upset that like everyone got so much shit, like all the writers and all the creators and all the actors and everything. Everyone was like, the ending of Lost sucks, and it's now got this stereotype that it sucks, and it makes me so angry.
Because it has a great ending.
Yeah.
There's so much other stuff you could be shitting on the writers for.
Yeah. Focus
sorry.
on that.
You want to give them shit for something, give them shit for the weird incest plotline. Don't give them shit for the ending. The ending was great. Give them shit for the fact that they hate women.
It's like, hello, is this thing on? Hello, is there nobody else
Can
noticing
anyone
this?
hear me?
Why are you focused on that? Why are you not focused on the sheer amount of bikini shots in this series?
Like, can we have a bit of perspective? Yeah.
Anyway, we got a bit derailed from the plugs, didn't we? You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Ariel Hebditch. The weekend that this is being released is the weekend of the Brighton Fringe. I know. So we usually put these episodes out at like 10 p.m, which means you've missed me, unfortunately. But don't worry, because there are more dates that you can see. Ariel Hebditch, Skeleton Out of the Closet, my debut solo stand-up hour. One of those being the 30th of May in York. If you live in York or live near York, come along. It's going to be lovely.
It's going to be great. I'll be there also, probably.
Yeah, hey, you can meet us both if you really want to.
Take a selfie.
That would be insane if I was at the show and someone came up to us and was like, I know you from the podcast. That would make my life, I think.
That would be like, I can die happy.
Yeah.
After that, I reckon.
Honestly, that would be so fucking cool. Also, please follow at Spruce Moose Comedy on Instagram and TikTok. At the time of recording, we've recently posted a skit on there, which I wrote and I'm also in, and I'm really, really proud of it. It's called No Riz James Bond, so I think you can probably figure out what happens, but fun little Easter egg for you guys that you will enjoy. The characterization of said No Riz James Bond was based on Jack.
I could tell. I could tell.
And we're also doing a show at the Edinburgh Fringe this summer. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, you know, if you're going to be at the Fringe, you know, you can look at our Instagram. We'll probably have details on there. Hopefully by the time this comes out, we'll have details on there. Who knows?
I would imagine.
Who knows? Hey.
Yeah. And without further getting distracted, we are going to wrap things up.
We are indeed.
And we will see you guys next week for Born to Run, episode 22/3.
23! Oh, how exciting! It's our first numbers episode since we found out what the numbers are. And of course,
sort of.
It's the numbers episode for us, not for the show. So don't try and look for the show and be like, what about this is relevant to 23? Nothing, because it's not.
This will be brought up next week and the week after, I'm sure.
Yes. Okay, bye!